Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us today. Thanks so much for joining us. As is every day under a Trump administration, another busy day in America. Deportations across America of these violent criminals continue to happen. We're still waiting on some answers out of D.C. as to what caused that horrific plane accident between that military aircraft and that American Airlines civilian plane. As I've been saying, we pray for the lives of those loved ones who lost their family members and their loved ones. Our prayers are deeply with you as we await some answers. Folks, on today's show, we're going to be joined in just a moment by Rich Valdes, radio host, America at Night. Catch him each and every night where you get your radio. We're going to take up a plethora of issues from the southern border to President Trump's cabinet picks to this in America. Like I said, Rich Valdes is our guest today here on the Great America Show. Rich, it's great to have you back with us here on the Great America Show. Thanks for joining us. You're
You bet.
one of the hardest working men in media. If you're not on TV, you're doing your radio show, late night edition. I want to start with first the Trump administration and the first, we'll call it 14 days to make it easy
Sure.
in the numbers. Give me your reaction so far on the job. I often say on the show daily, promises made, promises kept will be the mantra for the next 4 years, because we're, like I said, 2 weeks in, and this man is doing more than he said he was going to do.
Well, listen, John, first I want to say thanks for inviting me on the show. And I'm also grateful to ICE for not deporting me, because I've driven through Newark, New Jersey. I've driven all over the place where they're saying they're getting everybody and they haven't gotten me yet. So I'm safe. But I say that in jest because there's so much propaganda out there. And it has to do with exactly what you're talking about. All the action that has been taken in the first 10, 11, 12 days of this administration, that is really just a barrage of things, right? Last night I had Congressman Byron Donalds on the show, and he was saying that it was no accident that this stuff came out lightning speed, all these executive orders at the same time, all these actions and every step that they took happened at the same time, so that the deep state wouldn't be able to keep up with the pace that El Trompito and the team are going at. And I think that was brilliant. And I think he only could have done that having served before and having dealt with the deep state. So I think that's a big part of it. Now, absolutely, there's a lot being done on the front of immigration, on the front of dismantling DEI, in terms of pulling no punches with the media, reconstructing how they're doing the White House press briefings. I think it's all good news.
Yeah, and the cabinet picks. A lot of people ask me, what's going on? Why are they not all confirmed? Why are they not through? And it's, the Democrats want to play their games and they want to hold back. But we've got through some of the most important ones we need. Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel, we expect to be put through this week as well. And then we'll begin the dismantling of the FBI, because that's what Kash promised to do. And I know Kash personally. I know him to be a truth teller. Trump telling some of these top brass FBI guys, get out now before Kash gets you. What do you think is going to happen with the FBI and this deep state operation that they've ran against President Trump? It's not the last 4 years. It's not the last 8 years. It's really the last 10 years when they spied on his campaign.
John, I think that that's going to continue no matter where they are. There's people that are out there to get Trump. Some of them I think are going to say, all right, hasta aquí llegamos, right? We've had enough. But I think there's a lot of them are going to say, no, I'm giving this guy everything I got. Like John Brennan, for example, right? Former CIA director. He's not riding off on his pony into the sunset. This guy's at it as much as he can, whether he wants to be a thorn in your side or not. He has influence. He's going to use this influence however he can. I think some of the FBI guys, Strzok and McCabe, anybody's guess. But will they be out of the FBI? For sure. I think Kash is going to clean house. If the ones that don't voluntarily walk away, I think Trump was smart to telegraph that and say, hey, look, you got a chance to go now. Just letting you know, Monday's your last day. And I think that was a wise decision. I think everybody expects the president to deliver on these things. And that's why, again, just to circle back to what I said before, there's a lot of propaganda circulating out there about a lot of things, right? Oh, he's trying to, it's Project 2025 all over again. Right. He's deporting Puerto Ricans, right? And that seems to be in my feed. I guess since I'm Puerto Rican, I get the feed that says, I see these guys out on the island saying, the ICE people came in here and they asked us to talk to our kitchen staff. I got to tell you, I believe it's a pseudo event. I believe it's fake. It's phony. It's fraud. The whole thing is contrived and it's made up. This family that says that they were approached by ICE in a mall because they were speaking Spanish. Again, fake and phony and fraud. I've invited them to come on the show. We've got 6 million listeners in 250 markets across the country and no takers. Why? because it doesn't exist. They're making these stories up to put them on social media to try and get a blip in the media. And I don't think it's going to work. And it's working with some people, but mainly to the base that wasn't with Trump anyway.
You're absolutely right. I spoke to Victor Avila the other day, who was a former supervisory special agent with ICE.
Yeah.
And he had explained to me very easily, very simply, if you are, a non-criminal illegal alien and you're hanging around with people who have committed crimes, who are the people who are being deported right now, they're starting with the people who have committed crimes and felonies and misdemeanors. They have every right to question you because you're with this person who's a known criminal,
sure,
who is on the list to be deported. So I'm not really entirely sure where, the disconnect is. But President Trump taking it a step further, Guantanamo Bay, and Alcatraz were not two names on my bingo card before President Trump took office on January 20th. We now find out he wants to open up Guantanamo Bay, which I had mentioned years ago, which I think is an absolutely brilliant idea. You want to come to America, you want to commit crimes, you're not going back to where you came from, where it's a lot better off than Guantanamo Bay. Now they're going to send you to Guantanamo Bay because President Trump's not sure your own country will be able to detain you. What was that drug lord's name from Mexico that they've got?
El Chapo
Guzman. Wasn't able to contain him over there. So guys like that, we're going to hold because they can't be trusted. Your thoughts on Guantanamo Bay and now maybe Alcatraz?
Sure. Well, I mean, the QAnon people are going, they're wetting their pants. It's a wet dream for them. They love a Gitmo. But I'll tell you this, I do think it's a good move. But this wasn't just Trump being Trumpian and playing 4D chess and all that other stuff. This was really them forcing his hand. He literally said, look, I'm here. Yeah. I'm repatriating you with your people. Hello, Colombia. Here are your people. Hello, Venezuela. Here are your people. And they said, F you. We don't want them back. Yep. So what happens when you have a plane full of people that these people won't take back? You got to put them somewhere, and it can't be here because clearly they're raping little girls and doing whatever. And again, we're talking about the worst of the worst. So I think Trump had no choice but to say, well, guess what? The Coast Guard uses Guantanamo Bay to hold on to for what's the word I'm using, to detain illegal immigrants that they encounter on the seas. We could use it for that as well. So I think that was a good move and one that likely won't happen. Just a little while ago on Friday, I saw a breaking news story in the afternoon from President Petro from Colombia, putting out a statement saying to all Colombians in America illegally, please come home, asking them to come home. A different tune than he was singing 6 or 7 days ago when he was saying, you keep them. So I think, people are realizing that Trump is not bluffing. There's a lot of bite behind the bark. And I think we're going to get this problem under control sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Chief Recovery Officer, Steve Sorobroff, says, well, you're going to take half of our kitchen staffs and labor force out of L.A. Well, that's too bad. They shouldn't have broke the law, number one, Rich. And number two, it's not just these illegals who are responsible for being in this country illegal. It's every person who employs one of them.
Sure.
You and I both live in New York and New Jersey, respectively. Every restaurant you go into, I'd say probably 99% of them, there's some sort of illegal in the kitchen with a fake social security number, whether it be a construction company or whatever. You go down the list, everyone is using cheap illegal labor force. Are we supposed to feel bad for these people for knowingly harboring illegals, contributing to this problem? They come to this country, Rich. It used to be these guys would make, I have a lot of friends who are guilty of this as well. They come to this country, they used to get paid $100 a day. Now they want $200 a day. They want $250 a day. That's more than Americans are making to go work in an office somewhere, Rich.
So, John, I got two things for you there. Number one, it's not lost on me that we should have compassion on people, irrespective of anything. I get that. But we have to do the right thing, right? We do have to protect America first. I agree with that. Number two, they're getting $350 a day. And I know that because I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and he was telling me, he's like, I needed some help in my house. I know where they're at. So I stopped by and I was like, I just need some help in a project in my house. And he said 10 of them came to the car and they all wanted $350 for the day. And he was like, bro, I don't get $350 in a day. So you're not getting $350 a day. And I just thought it was funny. And this is the economy that we have. And now what I'll say in that particular example, when, and I'm talking about Broad Avenue in whatever town that is, Ridgefield or whatever in Jersey. There's hundreds of day laborers there at any given time. And there's a number of places like that. Clearly, to me, this is economics 101. The supply is now outnumbering the demand. There's way more men that are available to work as day laborers than there is demand for those jobs. So for anybody saying they're doing the work Americans won't do, I don't believe it. I think they're undercutting Americans. And even that, they can't even undercut them. And they're undercutting each other because there's too many of them. So I think the smart thing to do would be to get the free ride home and say, hey, look, it's not, the gold rush is over here, at least for now. Figure out how to do it a better way and come back home. Now, I think bigger picture, right? And this is where I talk about the compassion part. I don't believe the reason we have mass immigration and a desire for people to risk life and limb and put their kids at risk of getting raped to come to this country is because they believe not in the America that you and I know, because they don't know that America. They just know about the almighty dollar. They just know that things can happen here that can't happen anywhere else. You could say things here you can't say anywhere else. But guess what? In El Salvador, and Trump talks about this all the time, saying that, things are better there because we don't have so many. They don't have the MS-13 people. We do, and same thing with Venezuela. They do have a good president in El Salvador, Bukele, and he's cleaned things up incredibly. Guess what? People don't want to leave El Salvador as much as they wanted to leave before. Once you can handle crime and you can manage poverty and you can work on your economy, people don't want to leave the country anymore. There's a lot of Colombians, I'm sure, happy to go back home. I was in Colombia last year this time. Beautiful, right? I love Colombia. So I think as economies begin to scale in these countries through trade or working with the Trump administration for whatever export they have, I think it puts them in a position to be actually more advantageous to their citizenry when they say, hey, look, we're doing things here that we didn't do before. Look at Argentina. It's another one. We're not going to see a lot of Argentinian immigrants with Milei in office. So I think as we see those changes happening, we're going to see less of a demand for illegal immigration to want to come to the U.S. I think it's all going to work out in the end. Yeah,
and you mentioned the demand surplus, the supply surplus outpacing the demand. Then you wonder what those folks do. They come to America, they have no job. The only thing I could think of is you start resorting to crime. You start resorting to stealing. You start resorting to robbing places. If you can't get a job, how are you going to make ends meet to live here in America? Thing people don't talk about in those rich suburban areas, where they have the $3 million houses, where they're all in favor of this illegal immigration until you move them into your backyard. And then, all bets are off. They don't want to see them. Get them the hell out of here.
Then it's Martha's Vineyard.
Exactly. It's sort of hypocritical for these folks, who don't want them. The other thing that was so surprising to me, Rich, was during the 2024 election cycle, President Trump probably got more union support than he's ever gotten in his life. But some of them came up short of endorsing him. And the craziest thing to me is these illegal immigrants, hurt these unions more than anybody by undercutting labor costs in Manhattan, and of all places, building projects across the country where it's union laborers are getting double the cost, but some guys coming in and undercutting them. But these unions were silent. The union bosses didn't say a word. Was that surprising to you?
Yeah, well, unions are very wishy-washy that way, in my opinion. They've always been in it for the political purpose, not for even for their industry, which is shameful, but that's the case. Ultimately, union bosses want power. They get their power through the politicians. The politicians, reciprocate that power, and this is how they work. So, I mean, it's not like, yes, the teachers union takes care of teachers, but are they really about teachers, or are they about the power that they wield in Washington, right? It's a massive union. So I think that happens in every labor union. You get these guys that miss the mark. But it doesn't change the fact that you're right. And again, I've never met an illegal immigrant that was giving themselves a job, right? They're not, right? It's always some guy that looks like you or me that's giving them a job. And this is where this has always been a problem, a bipartisan problem, right? This was the Country Club Republicans always wanting good relationship with Mexico to have people coming in. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of immigrants. We're never going to get rid of even illegal immigration. What I think the focus on right now is to kind of stop this massive flow of people emptying out their prisons and their mental hospitals, saying, go to the U.S. and we're going to have a good country here so that they can deal with the problem. I think those days are over. Trump is putting the kibosh on that and doing it quickly.
I want to take a quick break here. We're talking about Rich Valdes. Radio host, 6 million listeners. Pretty impressive in my opinion. When we come back, Rich, I want to talk about a little bit of a long-term issue with the border, how we're going to finally secure this thing up once and for all, stop this massive leak that's coming in, and sure it up for whoever's the next president in 4 years. I also want to take up that horrific plane crash in Washington, D.C. we saw last week. We pray for the souls and lives Amen. And family members of those folks who it shouldn't have happened. It's bottom line. It shouldn't have happened. We're coming right back with Rich Valdes. Stay with us.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed, because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
We're back with Rich Valdes. Rich, we were talking about the border last segment. Just in President Trump's first week, we saw a 55% drop in migrant encounters at the southern border. You stop the flow at the border by putting up this wall that President Trump promised his first term. We've got to finish this wall. What do you think the long-term plan is to finally shore this thing up once we finish these deportation raids and start moving on to the less violent criminals, to get them out of this country, because they're here illegally too. They broke the law at the end of the day as well. Maybe they didn't commit a crime where, they hurt somebody or got a DUI or something like that. But being in this country is a crime in itself that's punishable. How do we shore this thing up once and for all so that when J.D. Vance comes into office in 4 years, this thing is foolproof and we don't need politicians running on fixing the border anymore?
Yeah, well, I don't know that that's really an option, and I'll tell you why. I'll give you my thoughts. I think if you look at past this prologue, Donald Trump served as president for 4 years. He was incredibly tough on immigration. He, in particular, border security. Right? He's still not known as the deporter in chief. Maybe after this term he might, but he's got to give Obama a run for his money. And this is really Trump's issue, is securing the border. It's making sure you don't come in. It was never really on getting you out until Biden came in, ruined everything. And now he's saying, all right, I got to clean up Biden's mess, and we're going to clean up what's going on. But if you remember, Trump was all on board with DACA. Most Republicans weren't, and Trump was. So I don't see him doing a reversal on those things. I think Trump is very serious when he says we are going to get rid of the criminal element, these aliens that are committing felonies in this country or that came here wanted with felonies from other countries. I think, and it seems like they know exactly where everybody is, interestingly. I mean, there's no shortage of raids going on, targeted raids. So I think once that happens and there's no longer a transnational criminal threat in the United States, like Tren de Aragua or MS-13 actively doing their dirt in our backyard, I think this stuff will slow down. It'll be back to the regular pace of, the occasional, oh, wow, there's a warehouse that's filled with, illegal aliens. Maybe ICE will go there and do what they do with an enforcement operation. But I don't think it's going to be what we're seeing today, where you're seeing 1,000 people arrested per day. That'll continue for a while, but eventually I think we run out of bad guys, and that's a good thing for us. The other thing is there is an enormous cost of doing this, and you can't do this every day for 4 years, I don't believe. I don't think that we sustain that. My opinion, I could be wrong. Ultimately, it becomes unpopular opinion. And Trump's himself, I've never seen him be in favor of getting rid of every last person. It just hasn't been what he showed while he was in office before. So I don't think we're going to empty kitchens across the country. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's what's in store for us. I think there's going to be a pathway, like he insinuated last time. He was happy to have the conversation about making the DACA people full citizens. I think we'll probably see something like that. I think Trump's a deal maker, and he's always looking to make a deal, but he demands the law and order, and that's appropriate.
I maybe would have agreed with you if you told me this 2 weeks ago before he took office, but from everything I see right now, he's taking the hardest line of stance we've ever seen. Guantanamo Bay, like I said, that wasn't on my bingo card, yet he's all in favor of opening this thing up to put the
But Guantanamo Bay, John, I think is going to be for, again, the people that their home countries don't want them back. Right. I think we're going to see a big push for self-deportation. That's going to happen. Nobody wants to live in fear. I was just at lunch a little while ago with a friend of mine. His girl works in a public school on the Jersey side of the Hudson, not far from me. And she was saying to him that they're getting calls from parents all over the place saying, should I send my kids to school? Is ICE coming to the school to arrest the kids? Right? People are in fear. This is not, I think, ideal. You don't want that. But ultimately, this is going to transcend into people saying, I'm out. I'm out of here. I'm not going to stick around and be here. This isn't the free ride that it was while Biden was here. And I think those types of things are that's going to get people to take action. It's also going to get people to slow down. The wall, great idea. The tunnels, we got to work on those, right? I think there's not enough of a focus down there. Who knows what's going on with these tunnels? So I think once we control the security of the border and we don't have this influx, it'll be easier to work out what's inside. I'm not sold on the idea that there's going to be massive enforcement against every last person that's been in this country for 20 years and paying tax on a fake social security number. Perhaps it will be, but I just don't think so. I think ultimately it's like a pressure pot. And right now there's a lot of pressure. But as we let off some of that pressure and we see more deportations of these horrible, vile criminals that are child rapists and whatnot, that stuff I think will begin to dissipate, and people are going to go back to saying, all right, now eggs are still $9. What's going on with that? And they're going to move on to other issues.
What, in your opinion, what can we do to these folks who are hiring? So the way I look at it,
throw the book at them.
We could fix this problem very easily, Rich. If you start holding these people criminally liable for hiring illegals, they're not going to come here. They're going to go home back to their own country. And listen, I've said this often on the show too. It's not really a popular opinion, but we've had no problem going into the Middle East and raiding countries and turning them upside down. Iraq, Afghanistan. You could throw a dart over at the Middle East and it'll land on a country that we, as America, had something to do with the screwing up, their country, Syria, Saddam Hussein. I mean, go down the list, right? Throw a dart at the board. What can we do to hold these guys accountable? I'm all in favor of figuring out a way to get the corruption out of Mexico. If we can get Mexico under control, we spend far too much money in the Middle East. What is it to spend an extra little bit of money to get Mexico to be a habitable country, to be a legitimate country to live in, where people can live and not live in fear of the cartels coming and banging down their doors? If we can help Mexico fix their own country, we can fix a massive, massive problem. And like I said, we've spent money, rich places. Go look at how much money we spent sending over to Gaza for what did Caroline let it say?
$50 million in condoms just the other day.
Right. $50 million in Mexico can go a long, long way. Doesn't have to be a gift. It can be a loan, but there's got to be someone in Mexico who's in favor of fixing their country. It's clearly not Scheinbaum, and it wasn't Manuel Lopez Obrador. But, why can't we do something like that? Start penalizing these business owners who are hiring these illegals, number one. And number two, help fix Mexico, help fix the corruption so that these people, Rich, at the end of the day, they don't want to come to America. The Mexicans, the Hondurans, but they don't want to come here. They leave their family, they leave their kids behind, they send the money back to their country. They want to be with their families, but they can't. You said the humanitarian aspect of it. I have a heart too. I understand that. If we can help these people fix their countries, Rich, if we can pull some business out of China, Gordon Chang says this all the time. We have so much space down in the Caribbean and in South America where we can send facilities to print T-shirts or, whatever textiles, anything you want to name that we can take out of China. It's a double win. You're employing people who need money, who want to stay in their country. They don't have to come to America. And you're taking business away from China. Why can't we move towards something like that?
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't think that's a Trumpian position, right? If you look at how Trump rolls, he's very anti-intervention. He doesn't like war. He's a deal maker. I don't think it's off the table, though. And I think that's the first thing he said. And he said it last time, too. He said, if you don't do this, we're going to label you a narco terrorist organization and we're coming after you. And it worked then and it worked again this time. So I think that they're willing to play ball because they don't want that smoke, right? And neither does the cartel. They're there to make money. I don't think they want a war, whether they have the ability to engage in the war or not. They don't want it. Nobody should want it, right? The United States is a war machine. And why get into this is a country that can do a 20-year war. Why do that, right? So I think they don't want to. And Trump hates the war machine. So I think that's the challenge that we have in an approach like that. I think we're probably going to see Trump cutting a deal where everybody's making money. We're making money. They're making money. Maybe a tariff deal, maybe some sort of manufacturing deal, something like the USMCA, maybe USMCA 2.0, something like that, where we offer help and maybe they accept. But I don't know, short of a regime change, how will you get Scheinbaum just got there? And she does not seem to be, I can't say she's incredibly obstacular, but she doesn't seem to be on board either. And when she ran, Mexicans were telling me this woman is not Mexican. So, we have a person that is not even representing the people running the country. So she, I think, is the epitome of the deep state in Mexico, doing what they do there. So I think she's just being a politician playing lip service. And I think Trump can utilize the option you're talking about. And I think he will if push comes to shove. I just don't know if it gets that far. We'll see.
Yeah, the thing is there's not been, like I said, a Mexican president who hasn't been in the pocket of the cartels. And it's to no fault of their own. They have no choice. And they know that when they're running. So I guess they do have a choice. It's either you get on board and you get on the payroll or you get killed and your family gets killed and tortured. It shouldn't be like that. Like I said, we've went in and toppled so many different countries in the Middle East for absolutely no reason.
But they weren't really any better, were they, John?
No, but we have a reason here, Rich. This is directly Trump. I was listening to him on Friday. He had said about giving money to NATO. And he said, very simply, the countries in Europe have a lot bigger problem and a lot bigger issue because we have a massive ocean in between us. We don't have any ocean in between us and Mexico.
Right.
It's a walk or a jump or a climb, right? Or a dig right under that border wall. This is a country where I think it's worth investing the money into figuring out how to help them help themselves because it's a long-term effect. Like I said, it would be so nice, Rich, in 4 years and 8 years. We got a lot more time to live, you and I. It would be nice in our lifetime to never have to hear a politician talk about securing the border. We heard George Bush talk about it, did absolutely nothing. Obama, absolutely nothing. These people have done absolutely nothing. It would be a godsend to never hear a politician say we're going to secure this border. And I think it starts with helping them fix their own country, whether it be, like I said, moving factories, having these companies incentives to move factories. And it helps us with China. We need to get the hell out of China, Rich.
We definitely have to get out of China, John. And China needs to get out of Mexico, is better said, right?
Correct.
I think China's been making moves all over the world, right? There's factories in India that are Chinese factories, so they could say made in India instead of made in China because people are hip to that. There's now made in Mexico, which is really made in China. So I think we have to keep our eye on China and make sure we can control that threat because I think that's probably the most active threat. They're death by 1,000 cuts. Every time, every scenario, you name it, manufacturing, intellectual property, security. They wanted to take Puerto Rico a couple of years ago and build a port. The things that they do are just so, in my opinion, egregious. And I think a lot of Democrats turn a blind eye to that. So I think Trump is hip to it and he's on it. Mexico, I think, big deal. Canada, another big deal. We have to make sure they're okay, too, because we're sandwiched in between. And all you need is for them to become further to the left and, make friends with another enemy of ours. So I think you're juggling here and Trump's got plenty on his plate. But I do think Canada, I think he's got that part under control. They're going in the right direction. With Mexico, I think they can go in the right direction with the right coaxing. What that looks like, I don't know yet.
Well, he's used tariffs. We saw him threaten them with Colombia in his first week in office. On Saturday, they went into effect on Canada and Mexico at 25%. 25% may seem like a little bit on paper, but from a nation like Canada or Mexico, it's going to hit them hard. Maybe China wouldn't be hit by 25%, as we saw in the first term, but it's going to hurt them. And, I said this with Victor Avila the other day. Trump's not asking for much, Rich. He's not asking them for money. He's not extorting them. He's just saying, shut down your borders, control your borders, and keep your drugs on your side of the country. Is that too much to ask for?
Well, for them, they look at it like this. They say, well, you know what? Guess what? Our people don't consume drugs like the Americans do.
Right.
So, if you guys would stop using our drugs, we'd stop selling them to you. And I get that. And all of it is a catch-22, right? And I think this is the reason why so many previous administrations, Biden et al., have been complicit in this because A, maybe they got a cut of it, but B, they're like, oh, we can't fix this problem. There's no real solution here. This is where I think Trump is different, where he does believe, yeah, there's a solution here. You make money and keep your BS over there. We'll make money and keep our mess over here. And if we're all making money, then we're all good. And this is why I always echo back with Trump being a businessman. That is the only way. New York City real estate, tough crowd, right? You got to grease a lot of palms. You got to know a lot of people. Yeah. And that you have to get to a deal, right? The mob's involved in everything. The landowners are involved in everything. The regulators are involved in everything.
Yeah,
So, I think he's probably one of the most skilled politicians we've had as president, despite never having served in public office. And I think we're seeing it right now when he makes these moves. Just imagine you're on a call with Petro and you're Trump, and he's like, "Hello, Petro, how are you? It's Trump. Hello. Listen, check it out. I know John Foss and Rich Valdes. They love to go to Medellin. How about I do a travel ban? No more Medellin for these guys." Right? And then guess what? Wow. Think of the impact on tourism when Colombia becomes an enemy of the United States. So I think they don't want that. Everybody wants the dollar. So as long as you can keep getting the dollar, Trump's all about that dollar and strengthening the dollar. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, but we're headed in the right direction. And I think we're going to see, honestly, I think we're going to see the Americas being made great again. To your point earlier, I think when you see a Colombia that's thriving, Argentina that's thriving, I don't know if it happens in Venezuela, but Brazil perhaps that starts thriving, less people coming here, more people going there, everybody wins.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with you on the Colombian ban. My hairline's not moving any further towards my nose. It's going the other way. So eventually I'm going to need to head over there and get some hair. It's too expensive here in America. Maybe some new teeth and
they got everything.
Maybe some Botox. Who knows? I'm kind of against it now, but maybe one day I'll be for it. But no, you're absolutely right. He is the commander in peace. He really is. He doesn't want conflict. He doesn't want war. And we've seen that, which is so crazy to me why the mainstream media, and we're going to talk about this on the other side of this break, the mainstream media and the left hates him so much. It's so mind-boggling to me because we haven't had such a gentle president in, I can't even think of the last time.
And yet so effective.
Exactly. We're talking with Rich Valdes. America at Night is the show, right, Rich?
Yes, sir.
Where can they catch you?
Anywhere. We're on 250 different radio stations and markets all across America. We're on all top 10 of the top 10 markets in the country. And you can always get it at richvaldes.com. That's Valdes with an S.
You heard the man. We're coming right back with Rich, folks. Stay with us.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. We're talking with Rich Valdes. The show is America at Night, each and every night, late nights here in America on the East Coast, the West Coast. You catch them on your drive home from work. Rich, the media has played such a role in this hatred towards Trump. We're seeing something now I didn't think we would ever see. A sleepy eye, Chuck Todd, as Trump likes to call him, out at NBC. You've got CBS. They're in talks with Trump now to settle a $10 billion defamation lawsuit from that edited Kamala Harris interview she did when she was running for office. Massive deception in the media, Rich, but it seems now these guys are either Jim Acosta, either calling it quits or being forced out, but I don't see the narrative shifting with these people. Caitlin Collins in the White House briefing room the other day, still with their hateful questions. The American people disavow this, Rich. The overwhelming majority of American people voted for Donald Trump, whether Jessica Tarlov on Fox News wants to acknowledge that or not. Donald Trump was elected overwhelmingly. When will the media wake up? Are we finally starting to see maybe some accountability between these sick people and the American first agenda?
I'll tell you this. I think the media is not a monolith. So I think you've got people in the media that are bean counters and they know how to count. And I'll tell you, I first saw this with Chris Ruddy, who's ahead of the game on everything, the owner of Newsmax. He said, you know what, we're going to blow out our programming when there's a Trump rally and carry the 3 hours of the Trump rally. And his ratings started to skyrocket where he started to rival CNN. Next thing you know, they start beating CNN in some of their primetime shows. And he was ahead of the game on that. Then they're rivaling Fox with some of that. And what does Fox do? Fox says, we're going to carry the Trump stuff after a year ago saying we're not covering Trump anymore. Right. So Fox is back covering Trump. They're carrying rallies. They're carrying speeches. They're doing whatever they can because they realize this is what the people want to see. So when the bean counters figure out, OK, we can make money covering Trump. Guess what CNN and MSNBC do? MSNBC goes to Joe Scarborough and says, hey, you and Mika, go to Mar-a-Lago and interview Trump. We want you to cover Trump. CNN says, hey, look, Jim, we love you, but you got to go on, after Valdes, right? You got to go on after in the extreme late night. And he says, F you, I'll do my own thing like Don Limon. And now they're both probably going to have a Twitter show. So ultimately, what I think happens here is these networks are realizing we got it wrong. We got it wrong. We pushed as much as we could. And some of them are not as complicit as we think, right? They are indeed, but not in their hearts, if you will, right? I think a lot of them were like, we were under pressure. We were like Zuckerberg. I think there's some truth in when he says, I'm just trying to be a social media guy. And Biden and the FBI were like, hey, do this, censor this, censor that, right? So I think when you have all of that going on, people succumb to the people that are in power. That happens. That's not there anymore. So now they're like, okay, I can take a breather. Maybe we can have some Trump. Maybe we can make some money, actually have ratings. The writing's on the wall for all of them. Trump has created a media ecosystem that includes, Real America's Voice, Newsmax TV, One America News, and a million different content creators that are independent that all get lots of views, including Tucker Carlson, right? Look at him with that interview he did with Trump the day of the debate that Trump said, I'm not going. And they got 350 million views in a day or a day and a half. If that doesn't speak volumes saying the whole world is watching Trump, I don't know what does. So it's clear to me that they're saying, all right, look, whether we like this guy or not, we got to cover him a little more fairly. We're surrounded by these whack jobs called maggots, and we got to work with them.
Rich, these folks don't realize who are going independent media. They don't realize how hard it really is. You and I have grinded and grinded. I was fortunate enough to be left this show by the great Lou Dobbs, who built a terrific audience. But if I had to build this myself, there's not a ton of money in it that it's worth living, that you can make a living off of unless you really hustle, and grind. So these guys are going to wake up and learn the hard way that it ain't so easy. If they weren't watching them on CNN and MSNBC, they ain't tuned into them on this, Rich.
Yeah, especially guys like Don Lemon and where these guys were making millions of dollars and have big platforms. But their platform begins to dissipate, obviously, I think, when they're not doing what Tucker did, right? I think Tucker Carlson leaves Fox and becomes bigger than he was, right? And has his own network now. But he's a character that can do that. I don't know that Don Lemon can do that. I think Don Lemon could probably be an amazing talk show host with Dr. Phil's network, maybe be a little bit to the left. There's space for him, but he has to be able to be flexible and do his thing. I don't think he can continue to be this attack dog for the left. Nobody's looking for that. Look at how News Nation came out of nowhere, right? And they're doing, they're competitive in a very short amount of time because they've decided to go kind of center down the middle and say, we're going to go this way and we're going to hear both sides of the story. I think that's what the American people want because they ultimately, in the palm of their hand, they have the ability to figure out whatever they want to figure out. And they say, I could watch this, I could watch that, I can watch whatever I want. I'll watch John Fawcett and Rich Valdes.
People tune into us because they want to hear the truth and they want to hear our opinions and get the lowdown on things. You'd like to tune into CNN and MSNBC to get the news. There's really no outlet anymore, Rich, where you can tune in. I'm listening on Wednesday night as I'm flying on a plane back from the West Coast as that plane, which we're going to turn to in just a moment here, crashed in Washington. And I'm scrolling through the stations to try to get, the news on what's going on. And I can't get a straight answer on what's happening. It's all political. Everything's political. I had to go on Twitter to figure out what exactly was going on because nobody can just report the news. You turn to CNN, they're blaming Trump. You turn to MSNBC, this is because Trump did a hiring freeze and, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I just want to know what's going on. I want to know how many people died, if anyone's dead, or how. And you couldn't get the straight answer. And I think people are tired of it. And they tune to us to get opinions and the truth, whereas you can't get it. Which brings me to that crash. Like I said, we pray for the lives of those lost ones. We're looking at it now, Rich, 3, 4 days, 5 days later. It took them 3, 4, 5 days to get bodies out from underneath the plane. This is America. It's in 7 feet of water. This isn't the tight. They got the people out, Rich, faster in that. What was that thing that went down to the Titanic? Ocean Gate. They got the people down from the sea floor, the height of the Empire State Building, faster than our own government was able to pull out these loved ones of family members who were trying to figure out if their family members on that plane or who died. Then we find out there's 2 pilots on the plane, both male. There's a 3rd female. They don't want to release the name. What's going on with this country?
Yeah, listen, John, I don't know a ton about all that stuff because it really is crazy. But I will tell you, when it comes to accidents and things like that, it's very difficult to tell where bodies land, how much of the body is landing. I hate to be graphic that way, but in these types of accidents, I got a description from a former Northwest executive who was explaining what it was like when this plane kind of split in two because it was a smaller plane. And he said, you have no idea where everything lands. The plane might be in 7 feet of water, but you don't know where everything else might land. And these are very, very difficult things. He did assure me that there is no better airline investigation team than the ones out of Washington, the NTSB. He said they're actually used globally. They're like constantly drawn upon by every country on the planet because they're so good at this. And mainly because we do it so little, because we have very few accidents. So for whatever that's worth. But I'll tell you, there was a lot of talk. I think Trump was right in saying that DEI may have played a role in this. But then the media has a mind of its own and goes after this trans pilot. Had nothing to do with it. Right. And then coming out saying, look, I'm the trans pilot. I had nothing to do with it. And it was, fake news. And fake news is just abounding. And it sucks that it does, but it's a part of life. You have to just be, I guess, a little bit you can't just be a bystander anymore. You have to become very media savvy just to get by in life. So otherwise you're going to get had. And that's the reality. But I do think that this is going to get managed well. And I think it wasn't something we saw coming. And there are questions that haven't been answered that I think are going to help us understand more. One of the questions was, why was the Black Hawk so high? We don't know the answer to that. That's all I can tell you. This guy explained to me that Black Hawk should never have gone higher than 200 feet, but it was at 400 feet when it had the impact. This is a big question of why that happened, because apparently the American flight was on the trajectory that it always takes. Yeah. So I think once we get those answers, we'll figure out exactly what happened. Something he left me with, which I thought, man, imagine that. Ultimately, this may be a situation where they literally didn't see it because it was that close. And I thought, wow, that's kind of crazy. But, think of a car accident. Those things happen that way all the time. And, I guess there would be some comfort in knowing this really was an accident as opposed to somebody being negligent or somebody being incompetent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pilot by trade. I still go flying every now and then out of Morristown, New Jersey. And it's not easy to see a plane in the air. I mean, there's times where I've luckily never been that close to a call. But, there's times you see, you really got to look, especially at nighttime, because you have no horizon. That's what we're told as pilots. Right. You have no horizon. So you're trained to look out there. Sometimes you'll see a star and you think it's a plane or a bright light. You think it's a plane. Sometimes you mistake. I can't tell you how many times I've done this. I've called in to land at a runway. And I said, I got the runway in sight, and it turns out it's the New Jersey Turnpike.
Highway. Yeah, I've heard that. Right. Other pilots have told me
all
that.
The time. The lights, you have different differentiators, but, you figure it out. This should have never happened, Rich. I mean, I don't understand as a pilot why you have a helicopter, even going at 50 feet above the approach path of like one of the busiest airports in that area. I've flown in there dozens of times. It's not exactly easy to land. They come in, they chop down, they make these left and right turns down by the river. It's not safe to begin with. But you'd said you didn't see this coming. I had been saying for probably 2 years now to friends of mine that I had this bad feeling something was going to happen. There was far too many near misses, Rich, that we've seen in the last 2-3 years. A few weeks ago, the whole Gonzaga men's basketball team plane almost collided with the JetBlue plane. A few months ago, JFK, a runway incursion. I mean, these are things that are completely avoidable. And, I tell this story now a lot on this show. When I was in college, it was during the Obama times in aviation school. Obama got rid of the college mandate for ATC controllers, meaning you could pull people off the street, and they were actually encouraging it. If you worked at McDonald's, they were encouraging you to come apply to be an air traffic controller, making a nice 6-figure salary, no experience necessary. That's not where we need to be in America, Rich. These air traffic controllers and pilots, in most cases, are more important than lawyers and doctors. The whole DEI
especially in that moment.
Right. The whole, what they teach you, Rich, the first thing in pilot school, there's no such thing as a good pilot. When you're a good pilot, when an emergency happens, Obviously, these guys on this PSA American Airlines flight didn't have the chance to be good pilots because they were blindsided and hit by this Black Hawk. But we expect, Rich, our military. It used to be back in the day, military pilots went right into the airlines, no interviews. You went right in because you were the best of the best.
Yeah.
Something like that, Rich, a head-on accident when you're looking right outside your front window, that does not need to happen in America, Rich.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And that's why I said I think President Trump's comments were appropriate and not necessarily about the trans part of DEI, but really about all what you're talking about, right? Lowering standards with the hope that you're going to diversify your workforce.
Yeah.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And it always will be. If you're good at something, you're good at something. And that should be the standard. You can't take somebody just because they look better and you're decorating your company. And I need a black guy. I need an Asian. I need a blonde white guy. You really can't do that in real life. This isn't Hollywood. You need people that know how to do their jobs, because obviously we're seeing the repercussions of what happens when you put people that don't know how to do their job. And the military is probably one of the worst examples of this as we continue to see this happening. A little bit of an aside. I was on Facebook one day, and a friend of mine, sergeant in the Army, was having a back and forth about trans in the military with her actual lieutenant from her platoon or whatever. And this guy, to end the argument, says, listen, I'm a gay black man, and I don't want any transgenders in our unit. And he explained why. And it was because they all go on this extended medical leave, and it's difficult to backfill their positions, and it makes the unit that much smaller. To me, this sounds like a security concern. And if people during the Obama years were joining the military just to get free transition surgery, this is how you weaken the American military from the inside. You hollow it out. And I think that's what we saw. So I'm grateful that Pete Hegseth is there, and he seems like he has his work cut out for him.
Yeah. I think all these guys, well, before we wrap up here, I want to get your take on that. Trump's cabinet picks and everyone who are still waiting to be confirmed. Are you confident everybody gets through? Nobody left behind?
Yeah.
Prices need to be paid, Rich, if these rhinos think they're going to go against the America First agenda. And that's you, Lady G, Lindsey Graham, who's up for re-election in 2026. It's unacceptable. You know, I watch Sean Hannity. He has him on 2-3 times a week. This man has no right to be going against President Trump's agenda.
Listen, I think everybody's going to get through. And I'll take Lindsey Graham any day over Mitch McConnell, that's for sure. And that's saying a lot, right? But we do have a rhino problem, and I think we found the cure to the rhino problem, and we're working on it. I would hope, similar to illegal immigration, right? Some of these guys are going to be like, and we've seen it. There's a bunch of rhinos that said, I'm out. I'm not coming back to Congress. And good for them. And we need to continue to fill that with the right people to continue to put these things through, because no tax on tips has to become a thing that gets signed into law. You have to, no tax on Social Security would be fantastic. The third part was no tax on overtime. Big part, right? This is what's going to continue the populist support for the America First movement. And we have to continue to do that. And I think, like you said, something that's synonymous with this administration thus far is promises made, promises kept. I think we need to keep up with that. And I think we will. For me, all systems are go on going forward. And if the rhinos get in the way, it's at their own peril.
Yeah. And you're hearing a lot of people. Scott Pressler, who was among one of the big saviors this election with RFK's running mate, Nicole, Shanahan,
yeah.
Vowing to go after every single person who wants to throw off this agenda. And that's exactly what we need. These people need to fear. You know, you can't let them keep getting away with this. We dealt with Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney for far, far too long. Those days are over, Rich. There was an American mandate in November, and we need to stick with it. Rich Valdes, the show is America at Night. You catch him each and every weeknight wherever you get your radio, or richvaldes.com. Rich, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us today, folks. We hope to see you back here tomorrow for the Great America Show, as our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. See you back here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Until then, may God bless you. May God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. See you tomorrow.